Welcome back to Building Elite Sales Teams. This is Lucas Price. The attention seekers on social media like to tell us that outbound is dead. Is that true? Today, we're going to talk about how the tactics for successful outbound have changed and what are the pieces to building a high-performing sales development organization. We are joined today by Justin Otley, VP of Global Sales Development at Talkdesk. Justin built his career by starting as a sales development rep at Software AG, where over the course of 10 years, he worked his way up into several different leadership roles. Justin, thanks for being with us here today to share your experience in building world-class sales development teams.
Lucas, right on. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, so we got the very quick overview of your career in your bio there. Can you tell us what else our customers should know about your resume and your career experience?
Yeah, so I am certainly always happy to nerd out and discuss any and all things SDR, prospecting, revenue pipeline related, and then, personal favorite is definitely on the talent pipeline side. I'm not super active on LinkedIn. Like maybe I'll probably do like one post like every 2 weeks or something. Majority of my posts are geared towards one thing. It's not followers, it's attracting talent for our org. So
Yeah.
whether that's trying to build the brand of my existing team and calling out top performers, first of all, it's good for their brand and network, but at the same time, it attracts more talent, right? So if we're having openings, if we're doing a big hiring spree, right? I like to have fun with that. Venturing out there a little bit, sharing more nuggets here and there, jumping on with people like yourself. So that's what brings me here today.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. What did you always want to be in sales or just kind of fall into it? How did that happen?
Yeah, it definitely runs in the blood. So I would definitely say it's in the DNA on probably both sides of the family to an extent. But yeah, it just kind of happened. I think right out of college, I was doing a lot of like restaurant work, working for like moving companies, doing construction, like 2 or 3 different jobs. And then I stumbled across this opportunity as an SDR at Software AG. Got the interview, and then the rest was history. It was a 5-month interview process, so that was fun. But
Oh, wow.
it took off and I just had a blast with the role. And I'd say after about a year, I had a sit down with my manager and he was like, "Hey, do you want to pursue the path of an AE?" Right? Like there's some leaders that are willing to take you under their wing as like a junior AE. And at the time, I saw the size of our SDR team compared to our competitors. And we were a fraction of the size, especially, where we were going and growing. And I just saw an opportunity there. I wanted to help grow out that team. I loved what I was doing. Haven't looked back since. There were certainly a few times where I'm like, all right, if I were to make that switch, if I were to switch that chasm of revenue pipeline to like closing revenue, like now is the time. And there was a number of years where I came close to making the switch, but I was just having too much fun doing what I was doing, building the teams, growing the function. And now we're here at Talkdesk and it's a hell of a team. It's a hell of a place to be at the right time. And lo and behold, we are growing out an inside sales team as well that I'm going to help lead. And so that's exciting to see, full circle where it's come from, right? Starting as an SDR to where we are today.
Yeah. I'm curious about that 5-month interview cycle. Were they sort of indecisive about whether to build out an SDR team? Were they building it out for the first time and they were getting all the pieces in place? Or was that a typical interview cycle at
I
that
would
point?
say that I didn't have much of a resume and I was a very different type of candidate and DNA from what they had been hiring. And then like 2 months into the process, I had had a few calls. It seemed like it was going really well. And then there was a hiring freeze. And so then the hiring manager went quiet for about 2 months. And over that series of 2 months, I'd reached out 17 times. And I don't know what the full breakdown was, but roughly like 8 or 9 emails. All the rest were calls. There might have been like a LinkedIn message. Then I ended up getting pretty down in the dumps because I was like, all right, I blew it. I blew it. And then lo and behold, he reached out like, "Hey, thanks for your patience. Thanks for the persistency. Thank you for the tenacity. Like we had a hiring freeze. I was also curious to see how you would handle it." I'm like, dude, you just put me through the most stressful 2 months of my life, but it worked out after that.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask you about today is, out there in social media world, people are trying to be controversial, share lots of different ideas. One of the ones that we see coming up again, because I guess it gets a lot of engagement, is that outbound is dead. You lead a team that does outbound. So I think it's not dead for your team. Can you tell me a little bit about, is outbound dead and what does it take to make it work?
Yeah, I would love to meet the people that are saying this. I've been hearing it as well. I actually hear it mostly from a lot of AEs, and sometimes it's with, like, I've even heard it from our own AEs, and maybe they're new to the org. Maybe they also have a new SDR, so they haven't felt that impact yet, but we change their mind pretty quickly over here, I would say.
I want to hear the rest of your answer, but I want to interject that back in 2014, when I started as the VP of sales at ZipWhip, I was receiving emails with linking to articles back then that were saying that outbound was dead as well. So it's been going on for a long time, but I think and actually, I would say it was a lot easier in 2014 than it is in 2024. So it's that I think this theme's been going on for a while now, but it does continue to get more difficult.
Yeah, more difficult in ways for sure, right? Like there's a lot more competition, and then also our prospects, our buyers, they've seen it all, right? Like they've been there, they've done that. Like you think your approach is unique. Nope, there's a couple hundred other people doing the exact same thing. You used to be able to, I mean, I was an SDR in 2012 through 2014. You used to be able to get away with a lot more back then than you could today. And I know for myself, like a lot of the tactics I did back then would not yield nearly the same results as they would today. However, the mindset behind those tactics would, right? Like the work you're willing to put in, right? The creativity, the hours you're willing to put in through that, like that certainly will pay off.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about how tactics have changed? I know that through, probably a little bit later than what we're talking about, but I don't know, maybe 2016, 2017, everyone started talking about personalization. People are still talking about personalization, but I think that personalization, my opinion is, curious to hear yours, that personalization is actually less important than relevance. If you can hit the right person at the right time and like look for signals on the internet that this is the right time, that's probably more than, saying, hey, I noticed what college you went to or something like that. So, how have the tactics changed and what are you seeing that works well these days?
Yeah. So I would 100% agree with you on that. Relevance over personalization all day, any day. So there's a lot of these AI like writing tools out there. And a lot of companies are picking these up and they're not really seeing significantly better results like they thought they would. And I think for most companies, before you even go that route, like you have to nail your own internal messaging first, right? Like and it starts with mastering your personas, not mastering your product. So I would say a lot of sales enablement starts off a little bit backwards, especially for companies that want to call themselves customer centric, right? It's usually the elevator pitch approach. It's product, feature, fit, functionality, and it's not nearly enough time on mastering your core 3, 5, however many personas, being able to essentially build out a buyer's matrix, the Jill Conrath buyer's matrix per persona. And so that's one thing that we've started to incorporate more and more into our SDR onboarding. And there's still a lot more work to be done there. Essentially, it starts with enablement and where we're having our folks spend their time, right? And so if we can have them more obsessed over understanding our prospects and our personas inside and out, then our messaging to those prospects and personas is going to be highly relevant for them because we know what they care about. We know what they think about. We know what their metrics of success are. We know what they're challenged with. Whereas like if we go to them and we don't truly know them, but we're just trying to personalize based on what we're seeing on LinkedIn and maybe creeping on social. And then how many personalization emails have you seen where someone like calls out the college you went to, or maybe did a good job talking about a post, but then their transition to their value prop was just kind of weird and awkward and it didn't flow. And their value prop really had nothing to do with like what you care about or what you're interested in. Right. I think that is the key, is nailing down your own internal messaging per persona, per industry first. Too many folks put that extra emphasis on personalization. So once you master that piece, then sure, you can start to personalize and have a bit more fun.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I've always said that, I think that a lot of companies put too much into product training before they really have done the customer training and what you're calling persona training, which I think is a more accurate name for it, but like really understanding the customer, the buyer, the users, like that in a lot of ways is more important than even than understanding the product that you're selling.
Yeah. Yeah. And then to answer the rest of your question there, like the other tactics that have changed for us right now, like our biggest emphasis is on calling, hands down. And again, for how many years people have been saying cold calling is dead? Absolutely not. Certainly not for us. I can tell you in order where we're having the most success goes phones, social, then email. We have a lot of work to do with email, as I think a lot of companies do. It's where you can spend the most amount of time and have the least return. So there is a big emphasis happening there with like, we've created a content committee. We've started to verticalize our sales teams here at Talkdesk. So having our messaging broken down in a much better industry focused manner that is not only relevant for personas, but also relevant for that persona in that particular industry. Otherwise, we're just wasting a lot of time there. And then the better that messaging gets, the more armed we're also going to be over the phones and through social.
Do you see that hierarchy of, phones, then social, then email in terms of where you're having the most success? Is that stable across personas or are there certain personas where, where phone is not as effective, for example?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. So I have been prospecting in heavily into IT and like the CIO's org for essentially my entire career. It is extremely difficult and highly competitive. So that's not all that we pursue here at Talkdesk. There's also a lot of like contact center folks, customer success, customer experience, going after more of like the business managers, like the business owners of different units and departments and things like that. But yes, so you certainly see that, especially within the IT side. A lot of times it is going to be a lot harder to get them over the phones. The connect rate within IT and the CIO's org is significantly lower than any other persona that I've seen. And then even with a company we're working with right now who are helping us increase our connect rates, and they're very good at it. They too, as they have been looking at our lists, have said like, all right, since a heavy portion of your list is IT focus, like that's the hardest area for us to help you. We're still going to help you, but just know that, right? So it's been validated to me from a number of folks. There's plenty of peers in the industry. And then obviously, 10 and a half years at Software EG, I saw the same thing. But what I love about calling is the consistency and the reliancy on it, and how, in my opinion, it's much easier to build like that math funnel that and reverse engineering through calling than it is anything else, right? As far as like, okay, if I want to hit my quota purely based on calling, and then maybe social and email can get me into my accelerators. First, I need to know what my connect rate is historically. Then I need to know when I'm on the phone, what is my meeting book rate, right? Like how many of these conversations I'm having, what percentage of the time am I scheduling a meeting? And then for these meetings that are scheduled, what is my show rate? What percentage of them are actually occurring? And then for those that occur, what percentage of those are going into pipeline? And then once I understand that math, right, now I can look at how many calls I need to make on a daily, weekly basis. So we can work with our SDRs, work backwards. And instead of saying like, hey, everyone does 50 calls a day, a lot of SDRs have different call metrics. Why? Well, because they all have different data. They've got different connect rates, different conversion rates, different show rates. And then if we start to measure that more closely, like each different data set, if someone's show rate, for instance, is 10% lower than the rest of the team, there's a coaching opportunity. Like we can dig in, we can do some issue diagnosis. We can start to peel back with a checklist and figure out what's happening here. And ideally, you get to that, you spot that trend or pattern as close to real time as possible. I can tell you right now for stuff like that, it's taking us probably a couple weeks to notice.
Some of my friends in sales development who sell to different personas than you, one of the things that they tell me has changed a lot over the last several years is that they're doing a lot more calling or a lot more outbound below the line. And where it's people who might not be their buyers, but they're having these conversations to gather information, be able to use that information to try to get that meeting with someone above the line, someone who is their buyer. you're running a sales development program. Are you seeing that as well? And then how does that go back and forth between the AE? Do your sales development people, would they run the meeting with the people below the line in order to gather that information? Or would that go to the AE? Curious about if you can kind of paint us a picture, if you're doing any of that and how it all comes together if you do.
Yeah. So when I first got here, I realized that historically, this SDR team, they were only going above the line. And it actually took me a month or two to realize that. And then it was like shocking, but then exciting at the same time when we realized it. Like, oh, wow, we are leaving a massive chunk of our market off the table here. We're doing ourselves a disservice only going after essentially like director and above or VP and above. And so we started changing up our coaching and our approach, our plays to not only be below the line, but how to include them. But the bigger reason is why to include them and what that message is. So for me, I gave them some examples of, right, like when I have a skip level with SDRs, I'm hearing issues and challenges a lot of times that I knew were happening. But when I talked directly with the SDR, a lot of times I didn't realize how bad it was, like something that needs to be fixed, or they're surfacing insights to me that I had no idea even existed. And right. And I'm not even that far removed from my team. It's not like I'm 3, 4 levels removed, right? I'm just 2 or 3 levels removed from them right now. So we have to think about that for like our VPs and up that we're reaching out to. If we can start to have a lot of the conversations with the lower level folks in their org, and we can start to gather this information, right? We can start to get our story straight, our facts straight, understand what's really challenging the people in the org, then we can surface these insights up to the VPs, up to them, and it's a completely different story. And a lot of times, we're finding that prospects really appreciate it. It takes a lot more work. And also like from an SDR, like how the SDRs get paid, right? Like creating qualified opportunities. They also know that like, okay, the more meetings I set below the line, like they might need an extra call or two before they're ready to go into pipeline. That's the other kicker there is you've got to level set expectations as an SDR org, but even with the AEs, like we've got to level set our expectations. Like, hey, we might not be going into this talking to a decision maker or even, a really reliable champion for that matter. We're going in because this is a strategic account and we need to understand more. We need to start having more conversations, build credibility. We can start to name drop who we're talking to, and then we're going to get to the right place.
Will the SDR run those below the line meetings and try to create the right meeting before they kick it over to an AE, or is it being kicked back and forth where, hey, the AE is going to run this meeting and now the SDR is going to keep trying to gather the intel from it and use that intel to keep setting meetings higher up?
So ideally it's both. And we've got pockets of where we've got some really powerful SDR AE partnerships that are doing this in tandem together, like live calling together. The AE will be copying the SDR on all their outbound emails. SDR is doing the same with the AE. They're following up on each other's notes. So there's a lot of that going on. But to answer your question directly, usually we are not taking those calls ourselves, especially within like our enterprise and up accounts. For commercial, that's happening more frequent, where we will field a call ourselves, whether it's inbound or outbound. That's happening more frequent, especially with our enterprise and up, and especially when it's outbound related. And we really got to come with a precise approach, prepared, ready to go. 45% of my team right now started this fiscal year. And I don't want my SDRs that have been here for a few months to be running their own calls with these folks, right? Like, it's not that they're not yet ready for that, but they might unintentionally qualify something out. And we can't afford for that right now, right? Like we're in a sprint to go public. We need as many conversations and at bats as possible.
Yeah. One of the other things I've been hearing, from the sales development world is the importance of, making the SDR more efficient by taking research off of their plate. You mentioned, it sounds like you're working with a partner in terms of, getting higher connect rates when you're calling, but also, are there things that you're doing prior to, the account going to an SDR to kind of prioritize, look at online footprints or anything else in terms of, hey, this is when we might be particularly relevant. And so you can prioritize which accounts you send to the SDRs to start the sequences and the phone calls?
Yeah, totally. So we're looking at this in a number of ways. So first of all, at Talkdesk, we're starting our first intern program. And so we have interns starting up May 15th. We've actually got two working right now part-time as like contractors, but we're going to be, they're essentially going to be ADRs, right? Like account development reps. They're interns, but our sole focus initially with them is exactly what you're talking about. It's all those, very essential admin tasks that need to be done, but we need the interns' help doing them so that we can buy back the SDR's time. So that was one of my biggest mottos coming into this year is how are we going to buy back our time? Right? Like if we take that audit on where we're spending our time each day and each week, and every SDR team knows it's true, right? If you break that time and like all of what you do into two different buckets, you've got like your green light buckets and you've got your red light buckets. The green light buckets is what moves the needle. Those are the direct prospecting activities that get you paid, that gets the company paid, right? The red light activities aren't bad, but they're what support the green light, right? Like that is pulling the list, that is scrubbing the list, right? Like that's all your research, all your preparation, all your account planning, all that good stuff. So how can we take as much of that? How can we automate as much of that? And how can we delegate as much of that as possible? With the interns, we're going to have them heavily focus on our prospecting list, helping us get the most accurate contact information possible, making sure that the titles are as accurate as possible. Like many companies, there's like Salesforce hygiene improvements to be made, which always people don't realize how much that slows down an SDR
Yeah.
until they go sit and they watch their workflow and they're like, oh my God, this sucks. Like you're
Yeah.
doing this every day? Oh my God. Right. So how can we arm the interns to buy back the SDR's time? And so we're really excited about that. We'll also have the interns doing quite a bit of prospecting as well. And then hopefully those that crush it and those that graduate sooner rather than later, we can bring them on full time and just continue that talent engine here at Talkdesk.
Yeah. Great. I know we could talk the whole time about hiring, but I have a very narrow question for you about hiring because there is one other thing I want to cover after that. What do you do to make sure during the interview and hiring process to screen out people who are going to end up with call reluctance?
So one thing we started doing was I would say the end of last year, we started doing mock cold calls on our panel interview process. So our panel interview is usually the last step in our interview process. So they'll have two or three interviews. If all those go well, we go to a panel. The panel is me, one or two of the SDR managers. Then we bring on an SDR as like a peer aspect. And so one of the things we've been doing is that mock cold call where when the panel is set up, someone from our talent team gives them like a challenge prompt. So they'll tell them like, pick an account from your choosing, whether it's something you're passionate about, right? Do your research on Talkdesk, pick an account, pick a prospect, like an actual real person that you think could leverage Talkdesk solutions. And then basically come prepared on like what your pitch would be, your Talkdesk pitch would be to this person. And so usually one of the SDR managers will do the role play, will be whichever person they chose. So first of all, you'll see like with a lot of different candidates, the type of prep work that they put into this, the why behind which account they chose based on what they read on the website. So that itself is really telling the preparation that goes into it. But then when you do the cold call, I am not looking for anyone to crush it by any means necessary. The most important thing for me is what happens after we end that mock call. We as a team, we provide feedback and then we do it again. And so then it's like, okay, how quickly, like how coachable is this person? And like how willing are they to apply things that quickly? How caught up in their head are they going to get? Right. And so you can start to learn a lot about that individual. It's okay that they get nervous. It's okay if they're stumbling. Some folks ask if they can start over. Totally cool. That's all natural. And none of that bothers us. Right. It's the energy they're bringing into it, the willingness behind it. Right. right? Like that, not necessarily confidence, but right, like that grit, that bravery, that courage to put themselves out there and to do it. That's been a lot of fun. So also we've been doing like a campaign on finding stuck SDRs at other companies, SDRs that have been there for a year or two plus that basically, right, like maybe they were sold a dream, the career path doesn't work there, they're stuck, they need an out. So having conversations with those folks, you got to be a little extra careful with those type of candidates, even though like they have that experience and there can be a lot of good there. There can also be a lot of bad habits that are way harder to coach than someone, for instance, like we hired a professional volleyball player, right? Never made a cold call in his life. The dude is a stud over the phones and is willing to do anything it takes to be successful, right? Still a lot to learn, but highly coachable, probably asks more questions than anyone else on the team. And so with these really experienced SDRs, right, like that, the level of detail that we go into with them with our questioning, as far as like what they were doing on a day-to-day basis, what their call metrics were, how they approached that, we go really deep. And I'm just looking to sniff out BS there, right? Like, and you can tell the ones that are BSing you. And then if you're unsure, right, like it's time to go with the gut and continue to go deeper.
Yeah, that's a great segue for the thing I wanted to ask you about next. And it's also related to, you mentioned your reason for being on social media and doing podcasts like this is because you want to kind of broaden the candidates who are interested in working for you. And so I'd love to have you share, what are the things that you do that make it great to work in the sales development program at Talkdesk?
I think first and foremost, there's no dreams being sold over here. There's a very real talent engine and a talent pipeline that's happening. My 90 days into here at Talkdesk, we had promoted our first SDR in like 2 years. It was a huge win. There were so many existing SDRs that saw that were very close to probably leaving. And I think that bought us some time with them because then people started to see the light, right? And then after that, it was like a domino effect. It was like 7 promotions in 7 months. Then we had a bit of a cool off period because we did a lot of hiring, a lot of training and enablement. And lo and behold, now we've got a few folks that are due to get promoted within the next month again. So I think what's key there is there's a very real opportunity to not just be an AE, we're building out career tracks all over. So even though we've been promoting a lot to AE, one of our upcoming promotions is someone going to our partner channel team, which is really exciting. We've got a lot of SDRs raising their hands for customer success. So we're getting them introduced to our customer success team. They're building like a mentor mentee relationship with the CSMs themselves, with the leaders themselves. And this is happening across a number of different departments. So that is available. The other thing too is have an absolute, just a star cast of SDR managers over here. They are remarkable. And I can hands down say better than I ever was in that role. They're phenomenal. So why are they so phenomenal? They're first and foremost, they're very good SDRs themselves, like exceptionally well over the phones, exceptionally well at crafting messaging, at structuring their days, at making shit happen. But then they are even better coaches, right? Phenomenal listeners. They know how to listen and to dissect, really hungry to grow, to learn and earn, and all that rubs off onto their teams. So those are just a few things. Other than that, like we hire great people at the end of the day. Like we can talk about what it is we're looking for in every individual, but at the end of the day, like we're looking for great people that want to be part of something that we're building here. People that want to move fast, right? Not necessarily like move fast in their career, but move fast at learning and earning. And in doing so, that investment in yourself, the right thing's going to pay off for your career, short term and long term.
One of the things I hear quite a bit is, with companies telling me we'd hired SDRs for their drive. And a lot of the people that had the right drive, had the right coachability, they came in here and they succeeded as SDRs. And then they got promoted into AE. And depending on the AE role, if it's a little bit more complicated of a sell, they also have to be good at organization and planning. This may or may not be true for Talkdesk, but in some cases, people are telling me, our SDRs that are getting promoted to AEs, are failing because even though they have the drive, they don't have the organization and planning, the business acumen to have these conversations. What I'm leading into with this is, you mentioned that you have SDRs being promoted into roles across the organization, not just account executives. How do you identify what is, whether an SDR has the traits to go into a certain role? What are you looking for? And how do you see, when someone whose job is mostly calling and messaging and emailing, like whether they have the traits to be in a channel program or an account executive program or any other program?
So one big piece of that for me is when I start to get them introduced to the right people. So like I can give you an example. We had some folks that started in March, in February, and as early as the beginning of April, I was introducing them to different departments of future roles that they're looking to pursue. Only 2 months into the job, we were starting that process. And so I rely pretty heavily in partnering with the other leaders that we're introducing these folks to. And we've got a good relationship with a lot of the leaders. They know what they're looking for. And so I've also asked that they give the SDRs like direct, candor feedback as far as like, hey, here's what it sounds like I think you need to work on if you want to be a part of this type of team.
Mm,
And also we prep the SDRs ahead of time, right? Like these are valuable, like highly paid, valuable assets to the company. You're not just going to pick their brain, right? Like you need to come prepared to talk about yourself, right? Like you need to come prepared, make it very clear, like who you are, why you're here, what you're interested in. And then you can earn that right to ask those questions. So that's a big one is it's not all on you. You can partner with other people in the org and to get their take, like the true masters of the other roles. Secondly, one thing we're building right now is like a SDR to AE readiness boot camp that you have to qualify for. And I think a big part of that is going to be understanding the different the different traits and skills and behaviors that each individual brings, what they have, and then to your point, more importantly, what they don't have. And what they don't have, and then you compare that to which paths they want to take. If it's an AE path they want to take, the skills and traits that they don't have, are those coachable? Can we coach those? If so, like how easily can we coach those with this person and how quickly can we do that?
yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. To start to wrap us up here, can you tell us, as we think about all the things we've talked about in our conversation here today, what's a couple of takeaways that you'd give our audience just to wrap up and, some of the main points?
I think building a world-class SDR team, it starts with alignment with your leadership team. And I'm not just talking like SDR leader to SDR leader. It's your SDR leadership with your sales leadership. It's your SDR leadership with your marketing leadership. It's your SDR leadership with your ops leaders. People have said this for a few years now, but it's very true that like the SDR leadership role, you need to play, like I need to be the connective tissue between all things sales, marketing, and ops related at this company. And that is definitely always has to be one of my biggest focuses, right? I have a twofold objective at any given time. It's to drive a revenue pipeline and a talent pipeline. But there's a lot of moving pieces and parts to each of that. So I think another piece too would be making sure you understand the value in what a real career path does, not just for the people, but what that does for the results for while those people are in the role, right? If they're not bought into the vision, they don't see the career path, they don't see the light, they don't know what it is they're working towards, why they're working towards it, and how to get there, like you're going to see that impact the results. But then when you start to remove those obstacles and they start to become they start to get bought in, they start to become more motivated and inspired, you see the impact of those results as well. And it's astounding. Like the activity that they're willing to put in, the things they're willing to try, the hours that they start to put in, the conversions, like they're showing up to coaching sessions different. I think that's a big piece as well. And obviously, like we talked about earlier, outbound is far from dead. Old mindless outbound is dead. Obviously, like we all have heard like spray and pray model, it's dead. And even if it's somewhat working for you, it's a really quick way to flood your market, to really damage your domain, to damage the reputation and image of your company. Do yourself, your team, your company, and your customers, don't do that kind of disservice. Do yourselves a favor and focus on mastering your personas from day one. And even if you're the rep that has never spent that kind of time mastering your personas, it's never too late. Because as an SDR, if that is your focus, is initially mastering my personas, like I know 3 or 5 of them like the back of my hand, I can take that type of information and I can be very successful at any role within this company because of that. It doesn't just have to be sales related.
Yeah. Justin, lots of great stuff today. Can you just tell us where our audience can find you online?
Yeah, I've joked around saying I am far from an influencer. And if I ever became one, I would be the worst influencer because I'm pretty bad at responding to LinkedIn messages. Hence, Lucas, I think I replied to your note like a month late or something. So I'm a little bit better with emails, but with LinkedIn, look, I'm getting blown up in there. So like if you're trying to get my attention, right? I can tell you that I probably receive one LinkedIn video per quarter. I receive maybe hundreds of messages per week, close to that, but one video per quarter. I love watching the videos when they're sent. If you take that kind of time and you make it a fun experience for me, I'm going to do my best to read that and reply and get back to you, and we'll see what happens. And also, if you're reaching out for a job, like you've got to show you can do the job to get the job. So don't just apply. Don't just reach out to email once. Don't just hit me up on LinkedIn once. Make yourself known.
That's great. So I want to share some of my takeaways from the conversation as well. I think that, you really emphasize the importance of the role of the phone and phone calls in effective outbound in today's world, and then how you have to buy back the SDR's time. You need to, if you're building a successful organization, you need to really find the places that you can get efficiencies so that the SDRs can stay focused on what's really important to them. And then you have to have a real talent engine where you're bringing people in, but you're also developing them and you're showing them what career opportunities to keep them focused on, hey, if I accomplish these goals, this is where it can lead to for me. So those are, I think, all some really valuable things for our audience to hear about. And to our audience, if you enjoyed this episode of Building Elite Sales Teams, please leave us a review in your podcast app. And you can find more of our content online at yardstick.team. And if you have any feedback for us, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you for joining us today.